Welcome to 13. Let's go. So this week, another gig worker minimum wage kicked into effect, a new law. And this time it's in Canada. Pause. Don't move yet because, guys, we're going to be talking specifically about some Doordash here too, or what it's kind of this earn by time if we get to it and what's going on up here, because this is even weirder. So they're doing something completely different than the US. And then hopefully we're gonna have a little time at the end here today to talk about what's going on in Seattle, because I think we can finally bring around some of this mess about the pay up legislation that might even clear it up to some people in Seattle who I talked to and email with who are still confused themselves, and they live up there and work in it. So all these systems are confusing, trust me. I mean, even if ask the California people, and they've been doing it the longest. And Prop 22 has gotten very cloudy, and there's some very mixed up things. But let's talk about the British Columbia thing first, because first of all, I had a lot of people ask me, and then I had more people ask me how 2 weeks on the round table, 2 weeks ago on the round table, I knew that something was coming, and the next week, which was this last Thursday, I talked about it and it had happened. And I had just been talking to people. I didn't know the timing was going to be so odd. I don't have a crystal ball. I didn't know all the timing. I just knew what I knew and had heard, and it came to fruition. And it was a lot quicker than I thought it could have been. It could have been a month or so. We don't know with these companies. But here, let's talk about British Columbia for a second. So this was put into effect a little ways back, but it is now active. So it's British Columbia first. There, Quebec and Montreal and all that side of Canada will be also coming after this very quickly. In both cases, it's $20.88 an hour for engaged time, which we here in the United States often refer to as active time, but the engaged time. So again, a common number, we're seeing a common number up there. The 2088 that they're doing for gig workers for engaged time is 120% of British Columbia's minimum wage for everyday workers. So that seems to be another pattern too. 120% in California for Prop 22. Minnesota. So they all, even if they didn't exactly engross it, they all followed that model. But so engaged time there, I'll just go through it, even though we all know, again, it's active time, it's called engaged time, but it's from when a worker accepts an assignment, so whether it be rideshare or delivery, it's upon, yep, I want that offer, or yes, I will take that rideshare. From that moment until the task or assignment is completed, that is engaged time. And that rate, the additional, that is the rationale for the additional 20% is how the BC News is putting it. I never really understood that 20%. So you're basically saying that by doing it actually in words here, you're saying that that 20% is for downtime, because again, I'm all for us getting paid more. I just know that this is leading to a lot of paths that aren't so pretty. It's not like, hey, look, they're doing nice things, let's go over here. No, it's never that way, guys. I think we all know that. One difference in BC and what will be carrying over to Quebec is the regulation also establishes an additional compensation standard to compensate workers for the cost they incur while using a personal vehicle for work during engaged time. So, example, 40, it's kilometers, not miles, but 45 cents per kilometer for all ride sharing. 35 cents per kilometer for all delivery or shoppings. So you're going to get that additional. So when I said on the roundtable a couple weeks back, when I said $30 an hour potential, okay, so if you do it, think of it this way, because like Cheyenne, gig work mama who sits on the roundtable with us, she is in Montreal. And so one thing that she's complained about, which we all see in our markets, or many of us do in the big cities, we talk about this all the time, are the long distance ones. And it doesn't even matter. You can't just blame DoorDash or Uber Eats or whoever, but the long distance, oh my gosh, this is a horrible offer, horrible pay, and it's going 10, 15 miles. Okay, well, a lot of those happen up there too. And she said some of them even go farther, like 20 kilometers, outside the city. Well, now on a 20 kilometer, you're going to be paid, you're going to make an additional $7. So on top of that 20.88, you're now at $28. If you're doing just local delivery and you do 30 kilometers in an hour, that's going to mean you're making $30 an hour for an engaged hour. So if you can, again, her point anyway is up there. It's a little different up there because there is a lot of orders that are not being grabbed because they are long distance. Even the ones that she says, well, maybe I'm not going to do those, but like maybe they do pay better. Like even those. Okay, well, everybody's going to do those now. If you can make $30 an hour and stay active for every hour, I've always said EBT in the United States is just a mechanism to learn what the lowest amount of money a DoorDasher will work for. And I honestly do believe that. I still believe that to this date. I don't even believe this is as good as it appears. And I believe this is kind of a trap. One difference about up here in British Columbia, and especially when they go to Quebec, because out of all the provinces, British Columbia probably sees the most tipping. They get a lot of people up there for ski and snowboard season and other things like that who travel around and come from the United States, and they already tip. But over on her side, on the Montreal side, tipping is it's like the rest of the world. It doesn't happen everywhere. People don't absolutely count on it as part of their income. They're like, great, I got tipped. So, with us, we've seen these EBT things with DoorDash in cities here in the United States, and it's like the tipping mechanism. If once they have to do it, like in New York and in Seattle, they make it so you can't tip until after the food is actually delivered. Not only during the ordering is it not present, like, how I'm in Colorado, here we don't have it. So if I make an order on one of the platforms, the tip is going to be up front and I can put in the tip amount that I want for the person. Now, that is actually gone in the markets here that have this forced minimum wage type laws. So they actually have removed it and put it in for after the fact. So not only can you go through, pick all your items and you're not seeing it, make your order, now it's being delivered, there's still not an option to do it. Now, once it gets delivered and, if you do leave at door or whatever you're choosing, but leave at door, Dasher takes the picture, Dasher walks away, you get the alert, you go eat. It's very unlikely. Maybe. My personal experience is people don't come back into the app to tip all that often. And it might be partially not just the Dasher's fault, it might be the restaurant. Maybe the food wasn't that great. Maybe they're thinking about now they're not as hungry anymore. Once you're not as hungry, it's a sad thing, but are you going to go back into the app and tip them? You should, but are you going to have a little buyer's remorse almost and go, why did I just spend $100 on McDonald's and I could have just gone in my car and gone and got it? And now you're expected to go back in and tip. Yet when you're hungry, you'll do it, because when you're hungry, you'll just start throwing money at the problem to get your food. I don't know. I'm not a fan of these type things. But here's what I wanted to get to about Seattle. So the Seattle Pay Up legislation has been in place for a while. Even the people who wanted it it's very clear, obviously, volume is down 35% year to year. Tens of millions of dollars lost by the restaurants. The customers have incurred way more fees, including the new line item fee that's been around for about a year for $5, just passing the buck on to the customer, plus raised menu prices, plus raised fees that are buried in other fees. The drivers are seeing less. The drivers are seeing way less volume in order. And because people just aren't, if we can tell this now, because here's why. No longer can it be, well, this said this or this said that. We now have the stats of the businesses, the restaurants saying our DoorDash and Uber Eats volume is down $50 million year to date compared to last year to date. So there's real numbers out there. They're getting hit. The customers are taking it. The drivers literally everybody's losing. But to put it into a full perspective, they made that one extra high, right? They made that $26.40 for an active time hour in Seattle. And the companies have said for a while, we need to back this off to about $19 or whatever. I think they wanted it, whatever normal minimum wages in Seattle. Maybe it's a little more, but not 26. And now I just read this today, before I was actually getting ready to record this. Now the new push is that, and it steps away from the gig economy. And again, it's going to sound great to all of you guys, but really understand this, because money doesn't just magically appear. But now Seattle is saying that, because I've been wondering why the Seattle Council has been keeping this pay up in place at 26 whatever 40, because they even had a ruling come down on them to overturn it from people above them, saying it's not working, everybody's losing. But now the big push from the same city council is that Seattle move to a minimum wage of $26.40 for everybody, from the guy working at McDonald's to the guy working here, there, anywhere, that becomes the new minimum wage in Seattle, $26.40 for everybody. And any of you who have any understanding of economics know that we would all love to see that, but that doesn't work. That will not work. We're already seeing the businesses are already losing tens of millions, the restaurants, just from what they are trying to do with gig workers. But now you want to do it to all workers. How does any mom and pop stay in business to an Amazon? How does anybody stay in business? If I run a business, how do I employ people that I have to pay $26.40 an hour, plus payroll taxes, plus unemployment, plus all that? I mean, you're talking about every employee is now basically a salary employee. And that's just not really, that's not reality in this world. So anyway, hopefully Seattle gets that straightened out, because I feel like that would serve as a real launching point for some other cities. I don't think everywhere would make that dumb of a move, but some other cities would. They would try it, and it's definitely it's a nicely packaged failure. So hopefully they won't do it. Again, it sounds great to everybody, so don't get me wrong. I would love for minimum wage to be $50 an hour. But when you hear that kind of stuff from like California people and whatnot, and California lawmakers running for seats and stuff, they're doing it for one reason: to get your vote. Because it doesn't work. It does not work. In fact, it breaks economies. So with that said, that's 13 minutes. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything you want to hear about on 13, please leave it below. I love the comments. I reply to everyone. And that's it. I will see you back here next week, if not before. Got lots of stuff going on this week. Make sure to catch it. Peace, y'all. Rideshare Rodeo.